Hey, Brittany.
Hi, Rachel.
Welcome to another episode of the Tuttle Twins podcast, The Way the World Works. Today, I wanted to talk about sweatshops. And are they always bad? Now, Brittany, what do you think of when I say sweatshop?
Well, I'll put my bias aside because I think I agree with where you're going with this. When I think of sweatshops, I think of a third world country. I don't even know if people use that term anymore. Developing world, either way. Places like India or Indonesia, places like that where people are working in, literally they're sweating. That's why it's called sweatshops, right? They're working in very hot conditions where maybe there's not air conditioning and they're crammed in a tiny little building and they're working crazy hours and they're not getting paid enough. And I say enough in scare quotes because I think you're going to get to that later. But so there's people working under horrific conditions and for very little pay.
Right. So
making things Americans consume, because I think that's another thing too, like making like the clothes we buy. That's kind of what I think of.
So to define a sweatshop, it's a workplace. It's a manufacturing. It's like a factory of manufacturing where employees are subject to poor working conditions, low wages, long hours, little regard for health, safety, or worker rights. So, but I do want to clarify, we are not talking about forced labor. We're not talking about slavery here. I'm talking about where labor is inexpensive and maybe exploited by the standards of other people. So I'm going to draw a little bit on my experience living in the developing world, third world country of Haiti, where we had factories that you would easily consider to be sweatshops. They made Care Bears, they made baseballs, various things that Americans consumed. And I've talked about that before. But I studied the phenomenon a little bit in college and had a little bit more time to reflect on the economics of such a thing, why they exist, why are these factories drawn to places like that? And mostly it's because labor is inexpensive. Well, why is it inexpensive? It's because it's abundant and the people in the third world have fewer options as far as careers and jobs and livelihood. And you can feel terrible for the people that are working in a factory like that, like a garment factory. But you need to understand what are their alternatives. And in Haiti, the alternative was subsistence farming. Now, if you think a sweatshop is bad, subsistence farming is way worse because you're basically at the mercy of the elements. And in
you
Haiti,
mean elements like snow,
the weather,
rain.
Yeah, the weather. In Haiti, you could be totally wiped out by a hurricane or even a bad rainstorm. It's very mountainous, and just a landslide can wipe out your whole crop that you're growing on the side of the mountain. And then what do? You don't have anything to fall back on. You're kind of, in a terrible way. But if you work at the factory, you get a reliable wage, you get a roof over your head, you have at least something to depend on. And it's much more reliable than subsistence farming. So what a lot of Americans will do in protest of those working conditions is they will boycott, say, shoes or whatever.
Nike or
shoes.
Whoever it is.
Yeah. They're often.
I don't know if Nike has a sweatshop. I just said that. So don't Nike.
Right.
Don't come
exactly.
after me.
For example,
Yes.
X shoe company, they'll boycott. And what boycott means is just not buy and encourage your friends not to buy something in protest of the working conditions in the sweatshop. And the goal is to force the sweatshop to go out of business. But then what happens to the Haitian worker who had the factory job that was actually really beneficial for them is they have to go back to subsistence farming and be at the mercy of the weather and things like that. So the boycott, it kind of, boycotts make me upset because in my mind, that's not the answer. The best answer to the poor working conditions in a sweatshop is another sweatshop. In other words, another sweatshop opens across the street and then maybe another and another, so that there's a lot of jobs available for this pool of labor for all of the workers, so that all of the workers that want a job have a job. And then guess what? One sweatshop suddenly needs to hire more workers because all of the labor has already been employed. So what do they have to do? If they need more workers, they have to offer them better pay, better working conditions. Hey, if you come work at my factory, we have air conditioning and we have, maybe some benefits, or maybe we'll pay for your kid to go to school. You see things like that. They compete for the labor by improving their working conditions, and everybody wins. So that's why I think that sweatshops are not necessarily bad, and the best answer to a sweatshop is another sweatshop.
Yeah. So I have, I feel bad because now I have all these friends whose first name are Ben, and now I can't remember this economist friend, Ben, his last name, but he wrote a great book called Out of Poverty. And it really affected me. And it's about sweatshops. He went and he spent years in sweatshops talking to the workers. And what was interesting is a lot of American college students, these, they go to expensive schools, will, like Rachel said, boycott. Some of them will even go on trips and protest these factories. Yes. And the workers, John Stossel actually did a great segment on this. And the workers were like, I wish they would stop doing this, because our wage might seem small to them when they're comparing it to American wages and American way of life. But if you compare a sweatshop wage, meaning the amount they make, if you compare that to other jobs in that country, sweatshops are actually the people who work there are making way more money. For them, this isn't, oh my goodness, I've been forced to work in there. For them, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm getting off the farm. Oh my goodness, I'm learning a new skill. And maybe I can take this new skill, like sewing or something like that, and I can then, maybe I can go be a private seamstress for this little village or something. So they're learning a skill and they're getting paid more than they would have gotten paid on the farm, or, maybe something even worse. But one thing that's also great about it, that a lot of these, especially for women, never get to leave their hometowns, right? The ones that live on, their parents maybe had farms or they're working on the farms. They stay in these rural areas. They don't learn how to read. And I'm not saying everybody that goes to a sweatshop learns how to read. I don't know every single person. But they have more opportunities because now they're in these bigger cities and they're getting to learn more and meet new people. And so we compare it, when people get mad about it, they compare it to our American way of life. And we are so blessed here for all the faults. We are, what we have is unreal when we think about the course of human history and what's still going on in the world. And then my friend, this economist, he also asked the workers, he said, if you had to choose between air conditioning or maybe getting paid a little bit more, which one would you choose? And they said, not that we don't care about air conditioning, but they said, no, we would choose a higher wage. That wasn't on their priority list. Because another thing is, again, comparing their life to our life, a lot of places around the country, even Europe, they don't have air conditioning. And that's just one thing. It's not just the air conditioning. There are other bad circumstances too. And so our rubric, as they say, our criteria, our list of things that we're judging, what makes a good job. We're doing that based on our wonderful American great lives here, not on what's going on over there. And when we take away those jobs, when we close those factories, like you were saying, Rachel, is now we have put people out of work. We've put people who now can't afford to better their lives. These sweatshops are literally helping people better their lives. This is how the American dream started. You mentioned the Irish. I can't remember if it was this episode or the other one. I think it was in the other one. How when the Irish first got to America, there was a lot of people who did not like the Irish. There would be signs on businesses that said, Irishmen need not apply. People didn't want to even hire them. But a lot of Irishmen went on to work in factories and running machinery. But a lot of them, that was how they came over to America. They did that, and then they saved a little bit, and they saved a little bit. And now they have grandkids and great-grandchildren who are out doing these amazing things because they were able to start in a job that was not ideal. Those circumstances weren't great either, but they were able to build up and better their lives. And that's what these jobs are. They're to better our lives. And so I think of that is being kind of similar. You have that's where that starts.
Yeah, everything is relative, and you can't judge someone else's circumstances by what you're accustomed to, what you're used to, your circumstances and your opportunities, and especially in these different cultures. It's so radically different, and Americans often do not understand how life is outside of our little bubble. That's why travel is so good. It's so good to just... Yeah.
It would be like me. I have more shoes than I can count. It would be like me going to some, remote African village and being like, why don't you people have more shoes? We need to make the government give you more shoes. Why I have more shoes? And they're just thinking like, what? We don't need any of this.
Yeah. And
they probably don't need it either. It's just, it's a different circumstance. And it's in a way, we're not glamorizing poor working conditions. In an ideal world, we want everybody to have the best working conditions. But if those people, like my friend, the economist, found out, if those workers would have to choose between these better circumstances or getting this wage, they would choose the wages. They're happy. They're happy to be there. And if they're not, like you said, Rachel, they can leave, which is the number one important thing that separates something from being slavery or being a choice.
Yes. And just to reiterate, we're not talking about slavery. We are talking about voluntary working conditions for people that have limited choices. The best way to improve their lives is to give them more choices, not take choices away with boycotts. But you mentioned this book, Out of Poverty. That reminded me of a documentary that I saw at the Anthem Film Festival at Freedom Fest one year called Poverty, Inc. And that dealt a lot with Haiti as well, and factories there, and how they're trying to struggle to come out of poverty, and how sometimes help is not really help if it's misguided. And it reminded me of like American youth groups used to come on mission trips, like these short-term mission trips to Haiti, and it used to make me a little annoyed. I had a little tiny beef with American youth groups that would come to a country with lots and lots of unemployed, very cheap labor, and they would send these rich American kids over to like dig a well or build a school. It's like, providing free labor to an economy with rampant unemployment, not exactly helping. I thought if you really wanted to help the Haitian economy, what you would do is you would go to one of their better hotels, order a lot of food, because they all have like housekeeping services, and they have waiters, and they have, people with jobs at the hotel. You would go there and give them your business. That would really help the economy. Not, no offense if you've actually done one of these mission trips, but I would just like to encourage our audience to think really hard about helping the poor. I do want to give a quick shout out to one of my favorite charities, which is called Kiva, Kiva, which does small loans, like $25. And you bundle these loans and you do capital investment to like small farmers or manufacturers, not manufacturers, but, like small businesses in poor countries. And then they pay you back.
I love that.
I really like Kiva, and I want to give them a shout out.
We will have to do, so one of the earliest episodes we did, I had my friend Magat on, and Magat is one of the most incredible people in the world.
Oh, I know her. I know her.
She's from
amazing.
The Senegal area, and we'll do another episode, and I will rant about Tom's shoes. Because Magat has gotten me so riled up in that. In fact, I'll put that on the docket to do.
She was in Poverty, Inc.
Oh, what she did? They do a clip of her? Okay, yeah, she's incredible. When I was working at FEE, Foundation for Economic Education, I got to talk to her a lot. We had her as a guest on the podcast forever ago. She just does amazing work. She's a beautiful human. We'll have I won't spoil it. I will wait, and I will we'll tell that. And actually, I believe she is in the Tuttle Twins hero book or entrepreneur book. I will find out,
Oh, I
but
wouldn't
she's
be
in one of those
surprised.
books and it's
Yeah.
fantastic. So we could rant all day. We will save that for another episode. But thank you again for joining us today. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast, share with your friends. And until next time, Rachel, we will talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye. Next time.